Hello there, I'm Cheeky, and this is Fallout 76 Market Watch. So before we get into things, I guess I'm just gonna kind of lay out why I'm making this series in the first place. Fallout 76 has a pretty interesting market. It is the primary way a lot of players get a lot of the loot they need, especially whenever they're first building and leveling their characters, just given how difficult it is to actually get the gear you want. If you start to take into account how many different weapons can drop, and then on those different weapons, the different rolls you can get for each slot of legendaries, and how effective that particular piece of gear will be based on what legendary effects it gets. Most players come to the conclusion that it's easier just to kind of grind a little and buy it, or trade items that they may have that have value but maybe not value to them for items that will. And so I guess I kind of just wanted a way to kind of talk and elaborate about my thoughts and the ways that, changes that are taking place in 76, whether that be, anything from DLC to new content and the items that come with that, or even weirder things like glitches or maybe another duping wave, and how this will really affect how certain items will be priced and their value. Just to clarify a little bit, this won't be a guide where we really set any definitive prices on any of the items. I will give ranges, I'm not just going to be completely abstract whenever it comes to valuing these items, but I just want to clarify that setting a definitive price, even with these ranges, is pretty difficult. First off, value in this game can be pretty subjective, based off a variety of different factors, including, how soon you may want a particular item, or how hard it is to get, how grindy it is, how much time it takes, and all of these things go into how much someone is willing or not willing to pay for a particular item. And so the end price that, two individuals may agree upon in a trade could be a different of thousands of caps from the agreement that two other individuals come into agreement with. Secondly, the market is constantly fluctuating. Something I say today might not be true next month, next week, or even tomorrow, just based off a variety of different things that could take place that would, change the value for some items. Like if a dupe glitch became widely known tomorrow, a lot of the recent items, such as daily ops items or like drops from Earl, like all of those values would cumulatively drop, just because, given their desirability right now and the ability to duplicate them, it's needless to say that some would take advantage of that fact. One more piece of advice I would like to give before we hop into things is never make a trade where you're not completely happy with the end result. That is, if you have a feeling that you might be overpaying for an item, there is no binding agreement until you have officially made the trade and the item is in the other person's hands. You should always feel happy about the trades you've made. I'm not saying maybe a couple weeks down the line, something can happen to where you realize maybe it wasn't as good as it could have been. But generally speaking, as long as you're getting something you want out of the deal, you should be confident in it. And anything less than that, you should just, hold on to your item and wait for a more agreeable option to surface. Without further ado, we're going to start actually talking about some items and their values, particularly items from recent events that have come out in the past couple of months or weeks, mainly Earl, Daily Ops, and Meat Week. So first off, we're going to be talking about Earl because of the events. He is the one that's been out the longest, and his prices have had a little bit more time to stabilize, especially considering the fact that he's going to be a consistent event. So first off, we're going to be talking about the plans for the meat piles, the Wendigo Colossal Heads, the Wendigo Colossal Skin Rug, and the Wendigo Colossus Plushie. I am rating all of these in the 1,000 to 5,000 cap category. This is mainly because all of their drop rates are within 10% of each other, and so while you may expect to see some variation in their pricing based on the difference in these drop rates, overall
the amount that people are attaining them isn't that different from one another, and I would say they all have a similar desirability, with the plushie probably being the most desirable, next being the heads, then the skin rug, and then I'd say lastly the meat pile, simply because the meat pile is a little bit harder to put together with most camps, decoratively speaking, and I definitely think that the amount that people want it or would be willing to pay for it is affected because of that. Specifically talking about the chances of them dropping from the event, the plushie is actually the most common. But just given the fact that it's a plushie, and those seem to be some of the more hot sellers whenever it comes to my vendors, I definitely still rank it, generally within the same price range as the ones that drop a little bit less rare. The next being the skin rug at about 14%, the meat pile, and Colossus heads both being at about 10%, roughly. As far as all the cursed weapons go, I hate to say it, but they're all essentially script fodder. Like, the pickaxe can be a decent melee weapon for those who might not have one yet, but just given how common they are, most people that run Earl regularly probably have a good stockpile just building up in their stash ready to be script later. So I don't really think you're going to be able to sell these for anything more than their script value, or not much more to say the least. And lastly, I would like to talk about the Reclaimed Deep Mining Gas Mask, that definitely being the hot seller from this event, simply because it has a 5% drop rate, that being 1 out of about 20 runs, on average. And we are no longer in the honeymoon period with Earl. The event is definitely not being run as often as it was in the first couple of weeks since it came out, and so the amount of gas masks that are being put into the market has definitely reduced since the start of the event, or rather when the event first came out. And so I'm seeing that price stabilize more around the 5,000 to 10,000 range. Definitely closer to the 5,000 side typically, but some people are willing to pay a significant chunk in order to attain this item, simply because it's, on top of it being rare, it is a desirable piece for most people's outfits. And because of this, once again, I will state that I am rating it within the 5,000 to 10,000 cap category. Next, we will be hopping into daily ops items. First, I will be talking about the uncommon plans, the uncommon rewards, those being the Cage Bulb Lights, Burrow Signs, Valley Galleria Signs, the Vault 94 Jumpsuit, and the Vault 94 Stash Box plans. All of these have about a 10% drop rate upon receiving Elder ranking. Thus, you are definitely going to be seeing them more often than the uncommon ones, all of which cumulatively have about a 4% drop rate. If you are to get a drop from the daily op, it is more than likely going to be one of these 5 plans, and as such, it is kind of hard to sell them, especially to any players who are past 50 who are participating in the daily ops. If anyone's been doing it since the event came out, they have more than likely acquired these plans. And thus it's going to be a lot harder to sell them, especially given that it's a daily op and people are going to be doing them every day, and these are constantly going to be coming into the market. So I just do not really see them retaining much value in the long term, and especially now, I don't see them having too much value at all, outside of the fact that they are endgame content. Maybe surprising for some to believe, but not everyone has a fully kitted endgame build that can for sure complete Elder rank every day. So there might be some who are willing to pay maybe a couple of thousand in order to get the plans that they haven't received yet, but generally speaking, when it comes to the uncommon rewards, I don't really see them going for much more than about 1,000 to 5,000 for now. Most of that value strictly being because of the fact that it is endgame content, and while they might be a bit more common for you if you regularly grind the endgame content, for others it might not be so much. And so I still think they are going to, at least be worth a couple thousand caps, in the very least. Alright, so covering the other part of the daily ops items, the rare plans, these are going to be a lot more sought after, some of the plans giving significant features that many people would be interested in, on top of the fact that they only have about a 4% drop rate. So even people who have been grinding daily ops since day one, still may not have some of these plans and would be willing to pay a couple thousand to go ahead and have them and start making use of them. First, I will be talking about the two tradable learning plans. Obviously, the Warglaive will be excluded from this conversation given that it's not player tradable at the moment. And so we will be talking about the Whistle in the Dark and the Gutter. So the Whistle in the Dark, I am putting this at about a 1,000 to 10,000 price range. Strictly because while it is a legendary item that you can craft, the rolls on it just aren't that desirable for the average player, especially the primary role being nocturnal. Overall, it just doesn't make this a weapon that many people are going to be, keeping a slot open for in their favorite wheel, to say the least. There still is like a collection factor to it, just getting the plan to have the plan, and it is still only a 4% drop rate roughly on achieving that Elder rank. And so it is still rare, and not everyone will have this yet, and so I still think it can go for a decent couple thousand of caps. I simply just haven't really been seeing it sell for anything more than 10,000, and honestly, people just seem to have a hard time getting it off their hands. But I feel if you had it up for a couple thousand in your vendor and someone happened across it who hadn't gotten the plan yet, they might be willing to shell out those caps in order to go ahead and attain it. So the next one I will be speaking of is the Gutter. I am placing this one a little bit higher in price than the Whistle in the Dark at about 5,000 to 12,000. The reason for this is, quite frankly, I haven't been seeing the plan sell for much lower than 5,000, and I have seen it go for more than 10,000, amongst some buyers. I don't have firm reasoning for this quite yet, or as to why it would be seen as more desirable than the Whistle in the Dark of the two plans, because it's still a one-handed weapon, two-handed and unarmed definitely being the favorites whenever it comes to melee builds, and so I just don't really see it having a place in many people's kits. However, I'm just here to simply report my findings, and as of now, this seems to be the price range it's selling for. Because, just similar to the Whistle in the Dark, even though the general usefulness of the plan might not be there, it is still rare, and people do just like having plans to have them and go ahead and get them out of their collection. And so I do see some intrinsic value within the plan just because of that. Coupled with what I've been seeing it sell for, on the Discords and the marketplaces, I am putting this price at about 5,000 to 12,000. Okay, I'm going to be grouping up the last four rare daily ops plans, those being the Symptomatic, the Super Reactor, the Liquid Courage, and the Scavenge Solar Panel plans. I'm placing all of these in the range to 15,000 to 30,000, though I will say I do still believe that you might be able to get a pretty decent piece of armor or a pretty decent gun out of a trade from these items, them being pretty desirable and rare. You only have one chance to get them a day, and it's only a 4% drop. And as mentioned earlier, many people who have been grinding this event since the beginning still may not have them and would be willing to shell out a significant sum, especially it definitely depends on the buyer, but especially for some of these, I feel like their usefulness on top of their rarity really puts them a notch above the rest whenever it comes to their value. So first I'll talk about the Super Reactor and the Scavenge Solar Panel plans, because while still valuable, I don't see them as valuable as the other two items. Strictly because this is oriented more towards builders and people who want more variety. These plans not really offering much more in the way of like energy. The Super Reactor still only gives the same amount as the Nuclear Reactor. And so these are more so just different options for people who want different looks. But the building community in Fallout 76 is very strong, and so I think for the people who want to go ahead and play around with these plans, they'd be willing to give a significant sum in order to do so. Next, I will be talking about the Symptomatic, this probably being the most sought after out of all the new plans that you can use to build things in your camp. It having an incredibly useful ability to cure you of your disease for no cost. This, coupled with its rarity, definitely is what sets its value. This especially, I think you could probably trade for a decent piece of gear if that's something that you're wishing for. But as far as caps go, I'd say definitely at least 15,000 to 30,000. This could definitely be more than 30,000. However, given that that's the max cap stash, and typically this guide is also for those who might want to be selling these things in their vendors, I'm just going to limit it there. But do keep that in mind if you're looking to make some trades with this item. The last plan I'll be talking about is the Liquid Courage, also being put into the 15,000 to 30,000 ranking. This one definitely probably having the most practical usage out of all of them, especially if you enjoy doing the Colossus problem event. Strictly speaking, it just gives you a immunity to fear, which is Earl's Shout, and could potentially give immunities to other enemies that have fear abilities in the future. Definitely super duper useful. The ability to consistently DPS throughout the fight, not having to worry about being feared and running into a drill or acid barrels or Wendigos, is definitely nice and something I think a lot of players would be willing to pay for. I know I am particularly in the market for this recipe still. Because of this, as stated previously, I'm putting it in the 15,000 to 30,000 range. Similarly to the symptomatic, and quite honestly, these 4 plans that I've kind of grouped together here, I think you could trade this item for, a piece of gear that you're particularly wanting, but, you're going to get a lot more variation with that. It's going to depend on, who sees your advertisement and, what they have. I definitely don't quite see it going for anything too crazy, but, the market's a crazy place, and, sometimes you can get lucky. Regardless, I do still think you're going to be seeing a particular bit of value being given out of this. Oh, I almost forgot. Probably one of the most sought-after items out of the daily op is the Brotherhood Special Ops Mask and Suit. I'm actually not willing to put a cap value on this one right now because outfits especially have a particular desirability in the market, and people can be definitely be willing to part with some pretty nice pieces of gear, especially I think if you get the set. Both of these items individually are only a 4% drop rate, and so I think especially if you can get the set, you should be able to get a decent trade out of it. I think if you were to trade this item strictly for caps or flux, you might be missing out a little bit of what its value can get you right now. However, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But just given how much more outfits seem to be valued in the grand scheme of things in Fallout, especially the rare ones, for right now, I think you'd be losing out. One final note on the Daily Ops items to keep in mind is the fact that these are going to be consistent drops for a while now. And so if anything, I'm only really expecting the value to decrease over time. I'm not going to foresee any significant drops. It's definitely going to be steady, and who knows, maybe they'll add new items into the rotation. We don't really know, but as long as they are going to be the consistent drops, just given time, their value is going to decrease because there's going to be more and more of them put into the market. So if you happen to have a duplicate of one of these plans, or just one that you've gotten and aren't too willing to use yourself, I would definitely try to get a trade out of it sooner rather than later. Alright, and that pretty much covers it for Daily Ops items. Next we'll be talking about Meat Week items, and this one can be wrapped up pretty quickly. I'm not going to go so much into varying price analyses on the different items, simply because I think we should all be kind of holding on to them right now and letting their value increase over time. Meat Week has just ended. I'm sure more people than I have an inventory filled with Chally the Moo outfits and Bloody Chef hats and outfits. But quite frankly, I don't find myself wanting to get rid of them, because I do see in a couple months where those might be willing to go for even a couple hundred caps or a couple thousand caps to gifts to some players who may not have, been here for the Meat Weeks. But more than the outfits, obviously, I think the big win from this event was the Meat Tenderizer plan, and less so the mods. It giving any player who learns it the ability to start dropping legendary rolls for the Meat Tenderizer up there in the rankings for one of the best two-handed weapons in the game, especially with the peppered mod increasing its base damage, makes it pretty valuable just in and of itself, on top of the fact that it only had about a 2.5% drop rate.
Meat Week was limited to only being at the top of the hour every day, and given a limited 6-day schedule, or I guess 12 days if you're counting both weeks, every person only had a limited amount of drops given their Meat Week, and not even considering how much time each individual player put into this game. And so it's fair to say that a lot of people may have missed out on getting this plan. And right now, I think the people who have it are trying to unload it and get some rare items for them right now, and I think it's causing a little bit of a flood in the market. But I think if we wait out a couple of months here, whenever we're a little bit not so fresh off of Meat Week, we'll be seeing people be able to get some pretty nice gear in a trade for these items. That's for sure. Less so the mods. I think these are going to be going for a couple thousand, but I'm not going to put a range on that right now. But I definitely think in the future having them as a package deal with the meat tenderizer plan would kind of sweeten the deal for any trades you're trying to make with it. I think the Tato Salad plan will also retain a good bit of value, it also being a rare drop from the Meat Week event and having a pretty significant health buff along with it. On top of any of the cooking fanatics who just want to be able to learn all of the recipe plans, this one being limited time is just going to, give it some intrinsic value. Not quite sure if it's going to level out anywhere near the meat tenderizer plan, but only time will tell. As far as all of the more common rewards, it's not going to be anywhere near the plans I previously mentioned, but I do think we'll be able to get a fair price for them. We'll just have to see in time. Given that it is the start of Spooktober, I believe Halloween plans could fetch a fair price right now. I don't have any myself, so it'd be hard for me to pin down any trade values, but I have a feeling anyone who's feeling particularly decorative for this season might be interested in them and would be willing to pay a pretty significant sum in order to attain them. Also, this one is pretty minor, but given the addition of legendary perks, in particular the ammo crafting legendary perk, ammo is now just intrinsically more profitable to make and sell. Simply explained by you could only increase a maximum of 80% of the ammo that you craft on top of the procs is super duper in the past. And now, if you have the legendary perk, you are using the same amount of materials in order to craft more ammo, meaning that if you sold them for the typical price of about 1 cap per ammo, you will be getting more caps per resources put in. Not anything major, but I felt like it was worth noting. And finally, an update that came in while I was making this video is that of magic weapons being nerfed in the PTS, or not so much as nerfed, I guess you would consider it fixed, meaning that any of these magic weapons that had the legendary rolls that gave them the magic effects will effectively be worthless come the update where they fix it on the live servers. So, it might be a bit scrupulous, but if you want to offload some inventory, now might be a time before the information is too widely known. You might still be able to get some decent prices for some of the more fun weapons. And on the other side of that coin, if you wanted to play around with them a little bit before they're gone for good, now might be a good time to get one for a fair price, given the fact that they're about to essentially become worthless. Alrighty, that pretty much does it for today's video. First off, I just want to say thank you if you're still here and have sat through the whole thing. I honestly had no idea whenever I started making this that it would be anywhere near over 20 minutes, but I guess it makes a little sense given that I'm talking about 3 different events and all the items that can drop. I plan in the future for these to be a lot shorter and probably a little bit more concise, talking about one event in particular. But given the fact that this is a new series and I just want to talk about a lot of these things that had happened over the past couple months of the game, given that they're still kind of fresh and there still might be a little bit of confusion about their value. And I guess segueing off of that, I will say if you disagree with any of the price ranges that I've set in this video, that's like perfectly fine. That's how these markets work, is by all of us, attributing value to these items and then trying to find and negotiate an agreement where, both parties can be happy with the deal that's been made. I am just contributing my input into like what I'm noticing and hoping to spark some discussion and maybe some dialogue around it. Just so everyone's a little bit more knowledgeable and can make better deals for themselves. Lastly, if you wouldn't mind going ahead and liking this video and subscribing, this is like a new channel. I'm trying to, start a new series. It's kind of a fresh idea, and so any support would be greatly appreciated. All right, thank you.